What's up, everybody? So we're back. We're back. Chana, I don't know where he's at, but I'm here. Aaron's here,
What
and
up?
you guys are here. So should be a good day.
Let's do this.
What's up, Aaron? Everything
What's up,
good with
man?
you?
I'm good. Hey, like I said, I'm gonna share this with everybody else who's watching right now. So I got bit on the butt today by a dog, but I'm all right. Didn't leave any puncture wounds or anything like that. But I entered, so I volunteered a shelter 1 day a week, maybe two, just depending on if I had time. And I walked through the gate into the kitchen area, and his name is Alpine. It's a white German Shepherd. He's been brought back because he's kind of aggressive. And anyway, I got along with him fine, but he came up behind me and bit my butt, and I was like, "What the hell, man?" Like, I turn around, and then he's like wagging, like, "My bad." Like, come on, dude, did you bite me in my butt?
You know, stuff happens sometimes.
Yeah.
It was an accident.
Yeah,
He thought it was somebody else.
yeah, I guess so.
I thought it was somebody else, and he just wanted a little,
Yeah, a little bit of a booty crunch there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
How about you, man?
Oh, I'm good. I haven't been bit.
That's good.
Yeah, so that's good. I'm back from a little vacation. I got a little tan going, hanging out at the beach.
Yeah,
And so that was nice, right?
That's good.
Sometimes you need to do things like that.
Yeah.
And so we weren't here last week, but we're back now. And it's good to be back. Yeah.
It's good to be back. It's good to see you, man.
Yeah, thank you. I want to say what's up to folks here. Van Gool, how's it going? Tim, Wendell, Paul, you see the little logo there because he's part of the Daily HiFi Crew, like Victor Boyd, Reverend Slim, Fred. He's automatically in there, so don't worry about that. Yeah, what's going on? What is Aaron? If Aaron shows us pictures, the show could be canceled. Yeah. I'm gonna make a joke. I was gonna make a joke that you should put an ice cube on your butt after getting bit,
Yeah.
So, but like you gotta figure out the right shape. Like what shape is the ice cube? You can kind of like anyway, silly joke.
I need a steak on my butt.
Yeah. So what's going on? If you guys have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments here. And if you definitely want us to answer a question, then a super chat is appreciated because it helps kind of just notify us. It's like a different color, and then we'll bring it on the screen. And it helps support all the stuff that we're doing, like paying Tim because he edits all the videos, so you can watch them daily. That's why it's Daily HiFi, right? Not weekly HiFi. But yeah. Let's see here. So yeah, super chats if you want to do that. Any particular topics? Ooh.
No, but I do want to say that have you seen the movie Den of Thieves?
No.
Got Gerard Butler. He's like I was going to say, like, he's not a washed up cop, but he's just, and not a dirty cop. Well, I guess he might be kind of dirty, but anyway, he's a rough around the edges dude, right? And it's about bank heists and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they're coming. I saw a trailer. They're coming out with a second one. So if anybody out there that's listening has seen Den of Thieves and really liked it like I did, and they're making a second one, go check out the video because it looks awesome.
And does he talk out of the side of his mouth like he usually does?
No. Well, I haven't noticed that, but I don't know. Yeah, I guess I can't really say no because I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's cool. I watched Bad Boys. That's not that new, but I thought it was. I had fun watching it.
The fourth one, yeah, it's good, man.
Yeah, that was a fun movie. Slaps.
Yeah, I liked it too.
What else? So I put out a video review of an not old, but it's not. I'm not trying to be the first one to do stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just not the game I'm playing. So I reviewed the Cali Audio LP UNF, which you did probably like months ago, right?
Yes.
And it was my first video after maybe about 3 months or so.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And it's fine, right? I'm busy doing other stuff with Magic Beans and Spatial Group, stuff like that. So it's not that I'm not doing anything, but I just didn't feel like I didn't want to prioritize making reviews because it's just not if you break it down, like how important is it from a financial standpoint, it's like it's definitely not at the top of my priority list.
Yeah.
But that's not the only reason. It's also because, like I mentioned before, that I didn't want to get caught up in. Yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out how I want to review things now. I feel like you have your own niche with
Yeah, it's funny because
objective stuff and how you do things, right?
well, I've changed up my format a couple times, and sometimes I don't mean to. And recently, I came up with a format, and I thought I like that, and then I completely abandoned it, but not on purpose. Like I
Ah,
just did it. I just like how it is. Sometimes you fall into a rut of doing the same. Anyway, so I hear you.
yeah. Like I've done different things. I used to do speaker leaderboard, and then Chana would say, "Oh, that's too long. I don't want to see you do that." You know.
Yeah,
But then there's a group of people who like it. So you're like, what
yeah,
am I supposed to do? So then I have to just figure out, do I like to do it? Right.
right.
At the end of the day. But I was looking through some old Evernote. I don't use Evernote anymore, but I used to use it. Where you have notes and anyway.
I don't know if I've
And
heard
I
of
have a whole paper that's just showing when I first started the Joe and Tell channel. Like I was trying to figure out what the name was, and I had a list of all the things that I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, what I wasn't willing to do, what sucks about other reviewers not even in the audio space.
Yeah,
And just basically I took a look at that yesterday. I'm like, oh yeah, kind of refreshed my memory of why I started in the first place. And one of the things like was that I wanted to review old stuff that wasn't new, maybe stuff that I owned,
yeah.
stuff that hasn't been even reviewed because it's so old. Like, so what?
I think that'd be cool. Yeah, I mean, like I've reviewed some older speakers somewhat recently, and that went well. Like a lot of people were positive on it. Now, one of the
Yeah.
videos did well, and the other one didn't. Right, so I don't know why necessarily one did better than the other, but there definitely seems to be. I think that if you could get a hold of like an older clip speaker,
Mhm.
like that might be kind of interesting for people to see.
Yeah.
The Bose ones that you've done have all done well, and they've been interesting.
Yeah, and those were all speakers that I just had.
Yeah,
I didn't even go buy them. I just had them,
right.
and I was just curious. They were like so old. They're not even in production. You can't even buy them, I don't think, except used. And yeah, they did well just because I was really trying to figure out what was going on. Looking back on those videos, I'm like, man, I wish I knew a little bit more about directivity.
Oh,
I was just looking at frequency response. I'm like, man, I wish I could have done a little bit more to see what the directivity was on those, because it might have made a difference. See, he misses my board rankings. I could bring it back.
You can still bring it back.
One of the things that I wanted to do in these notes, I wish I could I don't know if I should share the notes, but one of the things I wanted to do was just ask a question in a video and then bring it up in a next video. Like I'd ask a question and then the comments, and then I'd bring up people's responses to the question in the future video to kind of create some more engagement. Anyway, we'll see what I bring back, but I am excited to start reviewing stuff again. Yeah, sometimes you just have to rediscover, take some time off to kind of rediscover how you want to do things,
Yeah, that makes sense, man.
You took a little bit of a break, right?
Yeah, I took like a month off, and it was good. Yeah. So I needed that.
You want to review stuff again?
No, not really. Honestly, no, man. I mean, I kind of just got used to not feeling, I guess, the stress. I don't want to say stress because it's never really been that stressful. I work a full-time job and I don't depend on YouTube, so I don't really have stress from having to do it. It's just sometimes I get so much stuff in that I put pressure on myself to get it out of the way because it starts to literally pile up. So when I took that break, that was good. I had something that I was going to try to get one out this week, but then I just decided I'm gonna wait next week. I'm gonna try to do like a 2-week schedule, instead of trying to do 2 or 3 in a week.
I'm excited about some of the ones that you have listed on Patreon. Some of those I've seen before in person, and so pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to go back and start reviewing some more stuff. And you know, the thing that's actually the most annoying to me, I don't know if it is for you, but I'll do a video. I feel like I did a good job reviewing the thing, and then I'm like, I make the thumbnail last, right? And everybody
Yeah.
knows like the title and the thumbnail are probably the most important things. And I'm thinking, man, I bet these other guys are spending so much time on title and thumbnail, and very
Yeah.
little time on the actual. Maybe I'm not saying very little, but maybe less time on the actual research and things that I think are more important, right?
Right.
But the algorithm likes that thumbnail and the title, and
Oh,
people
I
click
know it,
on it.
man.
They get
Yeah.
rewarded. And I always feel like, damn, I didn't spend enough time doing that.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. I'm right there with you. Like I spend a lot more time on the video and the content than I do the thumbnail and the title. Like I've even the past couple of videos for the thumbnail, like a lot of guys, and you might, and I've done it
Mhm.
before, you'll have stock photos of yourself for the thumbnail, and then you'll Photoshop yourself out and you'll use it for the thumbnail. But
Yeah.
I've got like 5 that I keep using. And I thought, well, I got to change these up. So now I just take screen grabs of my video. So it's kind of grainy, but it
Yeah.
works, you know, like because it's just as easy for me to do that. But yeah, man, I have a hard time being creative for thumbnails and titles, and not even like being creative in terms of clickbait isn't creative. And I don't mean that I don't mean that to sound like snarky or anything, but it's pretty easy to come up with a clickbait title, right? But it's really hard to come up with a title that isn't clickbait sounding, but also grabs attention.
Okay. What was your last video review?
Um, what was it? Let me think.
Let's see how easy that is. Let's test that theory.
Let's see.
Mine was
Oh,
the
it was my
LPUNF.
that one was actually kind of easy. It was my top 10 best and worst speakers under $300, and I called it budget speaker shootout. I mean, that one's kind of straightforward.
I mean, that's
That one's kind of a gimme, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Budget speaker shootout. Shootout is like the key word, right?
Shootout's the main thing, man. People love
People-
that one.
Okay,
And then if
so
you say like if it's budget, if it's under $500, people are going to fall over themselves to watch it because most people want to buy something that's on the cheaper end, and they want to feel like either the thing that they've already bought is really good,
yeah.
or that what they are going to get based on your video is something that outperforms something that's 3 or 4 or 5 times its cost. And sometimes that happens, but realistically, objectively speaking,
Mm.
it doesn't happen. The thing that's cheaper and maybe is $300 a pair cannot perform. It does not perform nearly as well as something that's $1,000 a pair. But everybody's got this notion that is, and then you get caught up in the king, right? This is the
Mhm.
king, or this thing performs better than this other thing that everybody regards as high quality, but it's still like so far off. Like that's the stuff that is very misleading. It's very marketing oriented, right?
Mm.
So that's why I say it's easy for me to make a clickbait type thumbnail and title, because then it's just a lie, right? Like I can just make something up. But if you try to have integrity,
Okay,
right,
okay.
and you're trying to do a good job, I don't know, man. You know what I'm talking about. It's
So,
tough. It
so
really
as far
is.
as the value proposition, so this is the way I see it though. Is let's say there's like pure garbage, right? Like that's low,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then you get some real good value stuff that's like it's like a step up, like garbage, garbage, garbage. And then there's this one that's like, how the heck did they do that? That's like this cheap. Like I think the LPUNF is like one of those $300,
Yes.
and like you're like it goes up like significant amount, right? So you get a
Yeah.
step up, and then you know there's others kind of similar price range, but you know you're gonna have to spend maybe 6, 7, $800, and then you're gonna get better. It's gonna be better,
Yeah.
right? It's
Right.
gonna
That's
get
that
better,
sweet spot for passive bookshelf speakers.
and then it goes up again, right? And then so it's like a staircase, right? And I feel like sometimes there's a big jump up, and that's the point where people are like, oh, I want to spend around this much.
Right.
What's that? What's that one? And then there's another jump up, but that's a smaller jump up, right? And it's
Yeah.
going to eventually keep being smaller and smaller to the point where it's like you could be spending more and then it's worse.
Yeah. So especially in terms of, because you got to break it out, and I think we've had this conversation before. You got to break it out, performance versus the design, right? Like the look and the feel of the design versus the actual, just how does it sound? How does it perform? It's subjectively and objectively. And I think that I've mentioned this as well, that it seems to be that about $700-800 is the point where you can get really good bang for the buck in a passive speaker, but it looks like it's just some pieces of wood glued together and maybe some vinyl slapped on top of it. They never really look that good in that price range, but they perform well, and they perform as well as speakers that might cost $1,500, but those ones that cost $1,500 look a whole lot better. So that's where it starts. You're not playing the same game anymore. You're paying for looks and performance when you get to a certain price point, and then you decide which one makes more sense for you.
So there's this guy, I don't know his name, but his channel is called The Hookup, and reviews all kinds of projector stuff. And this guy goes crazy when it comes to like he's doing all the objective measurements, but with like 6 projectors, 7 projectors, and like he has to set all these up. I'm like, dude, how much time does that take you to do? And he buys all of them and stuff like that. So I'm like, dude, that's excellent. But he does something that I think is interesting, where he'll have like low cost projectors all the way up to some expensive ones, and then he'll start comparing them like head to head, until like this one will surpass this one. Okay, next one, you pit it up against the next one, and how much do you have to spend for one of the projectors to beat this one? You see what I'm saying? So like he'll say, okay, well, and then finally this one beats this projector, but you have to spend 1.5 times more. And then this one, all right, how much do you have to spend for this one to be beat by the next higher up? So it's kind of cool because you see the steps, but there are specific products that show what product is the one before you get the the plateau, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. I got you. Yeah. So you're what is that? Gosh, my mind just went blank. Sorry, I'll come back around to it later.
Yeah, so let's say for the cheapest, right? Let's just go back to speakers. I would say, based on the stuff that we both kind of reviewed, I would say at the extreme, like $100, like around $100, I think that Numi is always pretty good.
Yeah,
it's like for a reasonable recommendation. Like, how do you even do anything for $100?
Right,
and it's powered, right?
The BS5P I think is like maybe $130 a pair or something.
Yeah,
something. Like
I mean, that's pretty low. So you're spending double to get this the Cali Audio LPUNF. Like for some people, that's a big difference. They're like, oh, I wasn't even down to spend 100. Now you're telling me 300.
Yeah.
Right. So they'd have to go to that, and that would be the step up from 300. What's the next step up from there? I don't know. Maybe they're bigger Cali Audio ones, or
like the LP6, LP8. I mean, ELAC has some good stuff. Like the debut reference is what it is. The DBR62 is the one that comes to mind. I'm sure that there are others that I just don't recall, but I mean, there's stuff you can get in that range.
Eventually, you're gonna get to a point where it's gonna be like Wharfdale's gonna be in that mix, and then you're gonna keep going up, and then you're gonna go to the MoFi source point, and then you're gonna keep going up, and there's at every level there's gonna be a speaker that's kind of like the one that's holding it together for that group. You know what I mean?
Right.
Holding it.
Sure, man.
So I think that's a cool way to do it.
No, I like that idea a lot, actually.
Yeah. What are you guys saying in the chat here? Anything?
I got I start a couple that I can answer. So I'll do this one from Travis. So what's in my pipeline? Help me out, Joe, if I'm forgetting everything or anything. So there's
I have one in mind that I'm excited about.
Cali SM5. Is that it? Okay, so I've got that one coming. So the thing that's holding that one up is Nate at Cali was like, I guess they can, if you do Room EQ Wizard or you want to take an in-room measurement. Do you know about you may know more about this than I do. So if you do, let me know.
Okay.
But you can do an in-room measurement.
And I did a measurement of those in their studio.
Okay. So if you do the measurement, then they can give you a correction curve for that, right? So you're in situ, they can provide you a correction curve for that response.
Oh, I didn't know that that's something that they could do.
I think that's part of the process. I may be misspeaking on that. I mean,
I love that idea.
Yeah. So if I'm able to get some time this week, that's the idea, is that I will do some in-room measurement with that and then send that to Nate, and then they'll send me back a calibration, I guess. So I think that's pretty cool. I don't know if they have a video on it on their YouTube channel. I'm still not 100% clear on that because I've got other stuff that I've been paying attention more to lately. The Radiant Acoustics Clarity 6.2 is one that'll be out next week, I think.
By the way, for the Cali audio stuff, I did show him Magic Beans. So
okay.
I sent you one. Maybe you can try that out and see how it works for that, and see how it aligns with maybe what you do automatically. Also, be interested in seeing that. Radiant acoustics,
yeah. Try to remember if I'm gonna write it down.
Okay,
because I got to talk about your Magic Beans and address something real fast.
Okay,
nothing bad.
No. Hey, I want it all. Good, bad, everything.
So let's see.
Truth is, what's up?
Yeah. I know there's so much, man, that I've got. Oh, the down audio emit 30s, those tower speakers. Yeah. They sound pretty good. Measurements, people are going to be like, ooh, but they sound pretty good, which I'm not surprised with, because Don is consistently one of the brands that I tend to like the sound of, despite the measurements not looking great, right? So there's certain things that they accentuate in their frequency response that I personally do like, but the measurements, like, when it comes to the subjective part, that's where I notice there's more of a departure. Consistently, I noticed that Dyn sounds better to me than it measures, right? Yeah, I've got some other ones too, but I'm trying to think of what all they are. Oh, the JBL L100 Classic MK2 is another one. Dude, those things sound legit. That's another speaker. The measurements are kind of a little bit funky on it, but it has different tonal balance controls. So depending on how you set it up, and then the placement near the wall or near the floor, there are certain ways that you can alter the response. Yeah. And they've got like I think it's either a 10 or a 12 inch. Somebody in the chat can let me know. It's got I think it's a 12-inch mid bass driver on it. It's legit. It's a 3-way. So yeah, I've got those that are coming up. And then Marv was asking about the ELAC Debut 3.0. So I've got the DB63, which I bought myself to review. You know, I listened to Master P's conversation with somebody recently, and he said, instead of investing in other people, invest in yourself. So every once in a while, I will invest in myself, and I will buy a speaker to review, and then I'll sell it off to a Patreon member, or I'll give it away or something like that. In the long run, it's investing in myself.
There you go.
But yeah, they're $450 a pair. I ordered them direct from ELAC about a month ago, and they just shipped out a few weeks ago. I think they're really good for the money. They definitely, well, I say definitely, I do rank them above the DB62, the previous model. But there are other ways that the previous model do still outperform these. So it's interesting. So that'll be a review coming out maybe the next 3 or 4 weeks.
I think an interesting note about the ELAC is this is a debut that Andrew Jones did not design.
Yeah.
Right? It's a different designer. So it's interesting to see the changes. You're like, when there's a lot of times speaker designers, I would say the ones who know what they're doing, there's a consistent pattern that you see in some of their work, right?
Right.
Others, sometimes they get lucky. Like sometimes you'll see a designer who kind of gets lucky. None of the stuff is good, and then all of a sudden one's like really good, and you're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Congrats.
No, that's true. That'll be interesting to see how people react to the data. You know, the people who are very data hungry. I'll be interested to see how they react to the comparison between the two different sets of measurements between those speakers, because they definitely differ. They definitely differ, but the new one isn't. I think the new one will make a lot of people happy. I'll just put it that way. It's at a good price point, and I think it'll make a lot of people happy.
I've heard it numerous times at the show. They were a few doors away, and I went to talk to Chris Walker over there. And what I told him specifically, I'm like, you guys have the best sounding room. He put up all kinds of treatment, and I'm like, dude, your room just automatically sounds better. When we're talking here, you like this sounds better. Your room just sounds more, appropriate for showing speakers. So just that in itself, it was hard to tell. Like, is it the speakers that sound so good, or is it just that your room acoustics are so much better than everybody else's? It's tough to separate.
Yeah.
But they sounded good, and people liked the way they looked, and I liked the way they looked. And there's a little buzz going on about them. Like, oh, did you see the ELAC? Just because everything else was expensive there.
Yeah, at a show like that, where they're showing off hundreds of thousands of dollars of speakers, and then you got $450 ELACs that sound good. They're not great. The other ones that I've got coming up are, let me Google the name. I think it's Audio First Designs is the name of the company. And I don't know how much I can say about the designer, but the dude knows his stuff. So he's building a kit. I'm gonna pull this up real fast just so everybody can see it while I'm talking about it, because otherwise I'm just talking. So give me 1 second here.
Oh, I was gonna say earlier while you're doing that, you're saying how easy it is to come up with. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna scroll down. Right, it's the Fidelia. It's a two-way, €50 a pair, and it's a kit. Let's see here.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's cool. The bracing going on in here.
I'm gonna say those are gonna have good directivity just by looking at the shape.
Well, I wish I could say what I want to say about the designer, but let's just say that the dude knows his stuff. And
Yeah.
oh yeah, here's their own spinorama, which my data
Okay,
backs up.
so there's a directivity right there. Okay.
Yeah, man, it is a fantastic sounding. And the interesting thing is, he and I talked about this. So he targets a smooth estimated in-room response, and he does that. I don't want to say like at the expense of flat on-axis response, but he prioritizes the estimated in-room response, and he does what he needs to do to the on-axis response to get it to go the way that he wants it to in the estimated in-room response. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like he plays the trade-off game, where some manufacturers they base only their measurements on their performance based on the measurement of on-axis response, right?
Mhm.
Foregoing everything else. And I've continuously found that the estimated in response is more important than, at least in my opinion, and Floyd Toole will probably knock my head off for saying it, but it's more important than the on-axis response, at least in a standard room.
Response.
Yeah,
I'm scratching my chest over here.
I'm sticking to it. I will go down on this ship. I'll play the violin all the way till it sinks. But
okay.
Anyway, with that said, that's a really cool kit, and they sound awesome. Like it's nice. I'll just say that it's really nice to hear a nice linear speaker when you hear speakers that are definitely colored in other ways. And then when you hear a nice linear speaker, like, oh, this is what it's supposed to sound.
Let me see. I'm making some notes. So, okay, when you're talking about on-axis versus in-room, right? I think it's tricky to make that distinction because I've been all about directivity lately. Like that's been the thing I'm looking at the most, right? And so on-axis is just one measurement. The in-room response is a combination of the on-axis and directivity. It's the interaction of that and this hypothetical room.
Right.
So I don't know that it's fair to compare those two things. It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, what would be ideal is good on-axis and good directivity and good in-room.
Right.
You don't have to play that game so much if you have the directivity correct.
I don't disagree with you. I think more or less what I'm really trying to say is there are some designers who put more emphasis. They struggle really hard to get the on-axis to look good, nice and flat.
Yeah.
But when you put the speaker into a room, it may not sound that great. And I can give you a good example without naming a speaker design. And because I've seen this in a lot of different designs, they target a flat on-axis response. They have controlled directivity in the high frequency because they use a horn, waveguide, something of that nature. So what happens is the directivity is flat through the high frequency. That results in a bright sounding speaker because if you look at the estimated in-room response, it's tilting down. And then when you get to the high frequency, it flatlines because the directivity is flat. So it's following the on-axis response, which is also flat. So then you get a bright sounding speaker in the room. So what some manufacturers will do, Kef has done this. I think Andrew Jones did this. I think I had a conversation with him about this. And if I'm wrong, don't hold me to this, but I'm pretty sure. But I know that Kef, their on-axis response sometimes will drop down a little bit in the high frequency because it's constant directivity. So when you have that constant directivity and you have a little bit of a tilted high frequency downward, then it results in a more smooth trend in the estimated in-room response. I know it's kind of, it would be easier if I gave you an exact example, but it's very common.
The way I look at directivity is slightly different though. Is I'm not just looking at the high frequency, whether it's flat or linear, right? It's my opinion that the bass response determines how we're interpreting the rest of the frequency. So I'm looking at both the bass and the treble, and I'm not separating them out and saying, oh, the bass looks flat, linear, and the top end looks linear also. It's like if the directivity looks like this, I think that's right. Right.
Yeah.
So you said constant directivity here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then you have your kind of slope like this. So how do I do this? So normally what I do is I invert it. So it looks like a frequency response, right? And so this is your bass response. And what I normally want to see is kind of like a downward tilt that follows the same slope. But because it's flat like this, like you said, so you expect the bass is saying, all right, I want it to be downward sloping, but then it flattens out, then it does sound bright.
It sounds bright, yeah.
Because
relative to the mid-range and the bass.
Flat.
Yeah. And you can EQ that because it's constant directivity. You could use a shell filter and take that down and you'll be fine, right? But coming from the perspective that I am, where I'm not assuming that everybody's going to use equalization. Like I would say, if I had to guess, half the people that I have watching my videos use EQ and the other half doesn't. I don't know what the actual metric is. Now I'm curious. I should make a poll out of that.
Yeah, I think you almost have to do the room method that you've described before, where you're just treat the room so that you're absorbing more in that situation. I talked to kind of similar topic. I talked to Dennis Murphy for an hour and a half at Philharmonic. Super nice guy. And I was a little bit nervous talking to him. I'm like, sorry, I'm talking so much. I'm just like very excited to talk to you. And he was talking about some of the stuff that we're talking about. You know, whether you optimize for on axis or in room or the directivity. And so it was an interesting conversation. It's because I'm reviewing the BMRs and I just wanted to kind of get an idea what his mindset was, like why he made certain choices.
I think he and I've had the same conversation as well. When I was doing, he paid me basically. He contracted me out to not review, but to measure one of his speakers. Right. And the whole deal there was like, if I measure it for you, I'm not doing a review. So I never reviewed them, but it was one of his HT speakers. But we had a conversation about that stuff.
An interesting discussion that we had was we were talking about if you hear somebody playing a live instrument in a room and you're outside and you're just hearing it through a window, versus somebody who's playing music through a speaker, can you tell that it's not live? Like, it was a interesting thought because now we're just kind of throwing away all directivity related stuff. You're listening from outside of a window. And I kind of feel like you could tell if somebody's in there playing a violin versus.
I feel like you could tell.
Yeah.
Like, especially like when you hear drums, I feel like you could really tell if somebody's actually playing a drum set outside of a house, you know, because I've heard drums from outside of a house and I'm just like, I can't put myself in the position where I feel like I would hear a speaker playing that and think that's a real drum, or that's like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
so that's a topic he brought up. Like, man, that is interesting. Why is that the case?
Well, that's something that Greg Timbers brought up when I had my interview with him a few years ago, and he was saying that dynamics was the reason for that. He said, like, if you're shopping somewhere and the speakers are playing, you know, music and it's way down the hall and you're not aware that it's supposed to be speakers in the ceiling or if it should be live. He said, but you know which one it is by the way it sounds, and he attributes that to dynamics. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Okay,
how about this? Would it work the same way if somebody is playing a live harmonica or like a smaller instrument, right? Would you be able to tell? I think the speaker would be able to convince you more than let's say a drum.
I would think that with a harmonica, it would be harder to tell the difference versus a drum, like in a room versus outside of a room. So I hear you there.
Yeah, interesting stuff. One challenge that I want to take upon is, what is the speaker that you hate the most?
Oh, that I hate the most?
You look so disgusted every time you talk about it and mention it. I think it's hilarious.
Oh, is it the Mika speaker?
No.
Even worse about it here, man. The Jamo or Yamo.
No, it's the monitor speaker. It's the one that's supposed to be it's the one that's supposed to be like a, you know, for studio monitoring, and it has like the worst response ever.
Yeah, no, that's I do not like that speaker.
I want to buy one.
Don't do it, man. Please don't.
Hold on. Okay. I'll tell you why though. Where is this? It's the one that you just recently had on your video where you're doing a shootout of like inexpensive speakers, and you were just like, don't get these. Just don't get them. If you want to get them, use my link, but don't get them.
Yeah. Or not the Edifier. I'm sorry. It's the PreSonus Eris.
PreSonus. Okay.
Yeah, that's the one I said. If this sounds good to you, get your ears checked.
Okay. I'll tell you why I want to take on this challenge, okay?
All right.
Because here, let me zoom in a little bit.
You gonna tell me it's got good directivity?
Yeah. Can I use that thing? Are you telling me
small speaker? That's fine. Because it's a small speaker. That's the only reason.
It's Nearfield, but look. Because this is definitely one of the worst frequency response on axis, off listening window, everything.
If anybody tells you those speakers sound great, never trust that person again. Period. There's like 8 to 10 decibels between the mid range and the highs. You can hear that. That's more than twice as loud.
But look at this though.
Yeah.
Why would they allow this?
If
they have this and you have DSP.
That's what I was complaining about in the video. I even said something about how they've got to be using DSP already for the speaker. So why didn't they just fix it? Right? I don't know. But also I have a typo where it says PreSonus Eris 3.5 instead of second gen. It says tuning.
Well, it fits this frequency response. Yeah. It should be second gen. That's what's up. So anyway, so weird. I'm curious as to like why they would even do this, but I want to buy these, and you can hook me up with a nice clickbaity title. Like I'm going to fixing the worst speakers. Is that good?
Yeah.
Fixing the worst speakers ever.
Making the best from the worst.
I'm gonna order them right after this.
Ask ChatGPT. I've done that before. ChatGPT always lets me down because it just gives me the same results, and that's how I know other channels use ChatGPT or some form of AI to generate their thumbnails, because it's always like the missing link, the reason why, the blah blah blah, and it's like something just ridiculous. It's like people, but I guess people enjoy that's what they click on. I'm just
$96. Eris 3.5, $96 right here. So am I gonna run into something where like the distortion's so horrible and that's why they didn't? Is that what's gonna happen?
So I don't know what to tell you. I think you're gonna have to boost that mid range because I think it's gonna be too hard to cut everything else. Okay. Like in terms of equalization and trying to like optimally use equalization, I think it's going to be easier just to boost that mid range than it is going to be trying to make everything else come down around it. Then you're going to lose all sorts of dynamic range out of that speaker, which it already has none of.
Yeah,
but that's a small speaker. So I don't want to dock it for that because it's a small speaker, but there's already limited dynamic range out of that as is.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. You're a braver person than I am. I wouldn't even waste my time. I'm just hoping that that PreSonus sees that video and they do better.
That just seems like fun. You know what I mean? Like $96 for somebody who's just like, all right, I want to spend $100. All right, get these, and then you equalize your APO. All right, I'll show you how to do it.
Do it.
All right, we'll see.
You do it. Send it to me, and then I will try to figure out a way to measure it with the EQ intact. Full clip will spin. We'll tag team.
Yeah, I mean, directivity is going to stay the same. It's just going to be the on-axis response. It's going to differ.
You see, though, it has almost constant directivity in the high frequency. So you're going to have to tilt that. You don't want to make it flat on axis. You're probably going to want to have to tilt it a little bit to get a good estimated in room. But then again, these are monitors, so you probably don't want to mess with estimated room. You want to target it for flat on axis because they're going to be near field.
That's what I'm saying. Mind. Yeah, it'll be a fun challenge.
Yeah, this is what happens when you put two speaker nerds together and they have nothing better to do than to come up with challenges, right?
I just want to see if it's possible because it's so horrible. It's so horrible. Like it would be like a relief to hear it out of the box with that frequency response. And even if I can't target it perfectly, even if it's just like, all right, I'm gonna have to compromise.
Yeah,
I can't imagine it's gonna sound worse. I don't even know how to make it sound worse.
I think you could do much worse than what it is. It
That looks
sounds
like
terrible, in my opinion. So I don't get
that
sued.
looks like the frequency response of like a hearing aid.
That's what somebody just said. Was it Paul? Said, isn't that a headphone curve?
Oh, they got it mixed up. Right?
Yeah.
You know what? I've been getting emails from Fossey about the V3. You've already reviewed that?
I
Is
did.
that the one that blew up?
Yeah. And I mean, somebody replied to that video. I saw it recently, and they said they had the same issue with theirs, let out some smoke. I'm like, but I mean, I was pushing it really hard, you know? So I didn't harp on it too much about me frying it because I was testing it with static loads and for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was thinking it's probably very unlikely that with music and the typical levels that people are listening to music at through this, that it's going to be an issue. But I did have one person reply and said that theirs smoked up and went up in not flames, but it burned up too. And I
So
was
is
like,
this the one with PFFB? Post filter feedback,
I think so.
whatever.
Yeah, I think so. Chana and
Chana
here we go. Don't let him in. No, it's ruined.
Oh no.
He's gonna say, "What up, player?"
suckers?
Oh, I got close.
Almost.
What up, sucker? Not what up, player.
What's up?
Set
What's
your
up?
phone down somewhere safe, man. You're setting a bad example for the kids.
What? What'd you say?
Set your phone somewhere safe.
Oh man.
After 1.5 miles, turn left.
Oh.
Oh,
Fail. All right, I think that might work.
hey, that works.
Just
That's
be
safe.
safe. But yeah, so we're just talking about that amp post filter feedback, right? It's supposed to take care of the higher frequencies and the load dependent
Dependency. Yeah.
nature of some of these Class D amplifiers, inexpensive ones. So does it do that? Does it do that aspect? Like, would you say it's worth it? Like, oh, okay, there's a WIM amp, and then they're coming out with a WIM amp Pro that's supposed to have the PFFB. Is that like, ooh, I should look out for that? Is like, don't worry about it.
I think you should, if it doesn't blow your budget. I don't know what the WIM amp Pro is going to run. Like maybe, I don't know how much more it costs over the regular WIM amp, but I think because of the unknown, and the unknown being the low dependency, it could really alter the sound that you hear. But then again, I guess you could just use EQ to tune it however you want. But the odds of people knowing how to use EQ effectively kind of slim right now, unless they use Magic Beans.
So this low dependency, is it it doesn't depend on how loud you have it at all, right? It's just it stays that way.
So.
Or
yeah, no, that's a good question, but I don't think so. That's something that I wish I could test, but yeah, I haven't tested for that, but I don't think it does.
Oh, okay. Hey, Chana, where are you headed?
I am going to the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh,
yeah,
what are you doing there?
Anderson .Paak concert.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
What are you driving in?
I'm in the Lucid right now.
That's what I thought.
Can you? Oh, you can see by the back seats. They're all like different color back there. Ooh, fancy. Let's see. How do I flip the camera? Can I flip the camera? Whoa!
After 1/4 mile, turn left.
You're making me nervous right now. You got this. Oh, you're stopped, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Baller.
It's a lot of screens.
That's a lot of.
Yeah, it's a lot of screen. A lot of screens. Boom.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know.
Okay. You're gonna just. You meeting up with the
Hollywood Bowl in like.
You're heading out solo or what?
I'm heading out solo. There's 4. It's a party of 5, coincidentally. So.
Are you the fifth wheel?
I am.
Nice.
I think so.
Nice. That's awesome, dude.
So I've never. I mean, other than the couple of like Silk Sonic songs and the Fred Again track with this guy in it, I don't really know his music, so I've been listening to it all in the car right over there.
Yeah. So. It's like you're studying for an exam.
Cramming.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're cramming.
You're cramming, right. Because who knows? You know, I'm pretty good at predicting lyrics. So if like everybody's singing along, I can kind of like sing along too, you know.
Why don't you ask ChatGPT? You know what I mean? Maybe it'll help you out. What's
What
the
are the
most
best
popular
Anderson .Paak
line?
songs? I mean,
So
my main thing is just going to the Hollywood Bowl. I used to go all the time, and I haven't been in like over a decade. So
yeah, it's a cool spot.
yeah, somebody invites me, says, "Hey, I got an extra ticket. You want to go?" I said yes before I found out who was playing. That's just,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, it's on
man.
Tuesday. I'm like, screw it, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. I'm sure the guys will understand. Aaron can, yammer on about target curves or whatever he does.
What are you trying to say, man?
Oh,
No, I hear you.
you were mentioning that you had something to tell me about magic beans. Is that something that
Oh,
you
yeah.
want to hear or later or what?
No, somebody sent me an email a few days ago asking if I've used magic beans.
Hmm.
And
At the second traffic light, turn left onto Cahuenga Boulevard West.
Don't be rude, lady.
yeah, rude lady, don't be rude.
She's pretty loud, huh?
Yeah, she's
pretty
pretty
loud.
loud. But they sent me a link to a thread on a forum, and I'm not going to talk about the thread, but
Okay.
somebody was in there saying that I haven't talked about it because I'm trying to keep my integrity and I don't want to say anything bad about it. So just in case somebody actually thinks that's the truth, I haven't talked about it because I haven't used it yet. When I use it, I'll talk about it, and that's it. So that's all.
You know,
clear that.
and this is what I would expect, right? If there's something just technically wrong about the method, or just something that you're like, dude, bro, this you got to fix this. This is not right. Then I want to hear that.
Yeah.
But that's something I would
You and I
want to hear.
We talked about this before I even knew what you were doing.
Mhm.
Like I remember actually where I was when I was talking to you. We talked for like an hour and a half, and you never told me why you were asking all these questions about directivity. But I remember having a long conversation with you about stuff like that. And then you started talking a little bit more about what you're working on. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I understand. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm finding some new stuff out about, the directivity stuff. What I think you might find interesting is because we're doing in-room measurements, we're also doing near-field measurements. We're starting to extract stuff like directivity.
Yeah.
In a weird way that you would not expect. Like, you can't do that. Like, how are you going to do directivity with just those, right? But I would like for you to compare it with some of the clippal stuff in the higher frequencies, and I think you might find like, oh, what the heck? I guess that kind of works. What the hell?
Well,
That's so weird.
I think that there's definitely some things that are logical about it, and there are some other things that I'm like, I'm not sure. Like when it comes to bigger speakers,
Yeah.
We've talked about that before.
No,
So it's nothing
sure.
new. My main thing was just that I know people watch this channel and they somehow surmise that the reason I don't talk about magic beans is because of my integrity and I don't want to say anything bad, so I just keep my mouth shut. But that couldn't be further from the truth. It's just I haven't tried it yet, so I don't know. And that's the one thing is I don't tend to talk about stuff unless I know.
Yeah, and I would expect you to say that it's not good. It's not good. Actually,
I'm sure we can all assume that Aaron's just gonna say like, I like it, I don't like it.
That'll be about it. I'll make a video about it and I'll be like, it's probably no worse than this FiO SP3 speaker, but it's definitely not better than this PreSonus Eris 3.5. That's what I'll say.
Well, you tried YPOW, right? You tried that out,
dude. I mean, all of you guys were talking about YPOW, and we had those jokes in our private chat and stuff about YPOW, and I just went along with it because I never used YPOW. And then when I used it, I was like, what the heck is this? This is no good. And Shauna was like, yeah, bro, I've been trying to tell you. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Once you try it out, I think you'll find like, damn, this dude is not like when you had that other guy you interviewed. I'm not stupid. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm not stupid.
I'm not stupid.
I don't even remember that. Who was that he interviewed?
I don't remember. We'll talk about it later.
I'm not stupid.
They'll remain nameless.
Yeah, we'll keep it nameless for now.
Yeah, I'm just crazy. I just spent so much time doing this. It's like if I got it completely wrong at this point with the amount of time, then I am stupid, right? It's just you can't spend that much time and not figure a few things out. That's all.
Yeah.
There's some starred comments here. So I asked you about the PFFB, Fosse Audio. Should I? Oh, here's the question. I wanted to use those because they have that detection where it can detect whether there's a signal coming in and then it'll shut itself
Oh,
off.
okay.
I
Yeah,
wanted to use those kind of like I have a preamp or sorry, a processor, and I wanted to use Class D amps
hmm
instead of like a big old
yeah,
11 channel setup. Wanted to know if I could use a bunch of those,
hmm
but a lot of times they don't have a trigger input to
oh yeah,
automatically
yeah.
turn on and off, and then when sometimes they do and it doesn't work,
Oof.
I don't get it. So I was kind of curious to see if I could use that in a home theater situation, the Fosse Audio V3.
Yeah, I think you probably can. I know that I've come across on the internet people who are running multiples of those for different
Okay.
reasons. Yeah,
Okay.
so I don't see any reason why not. I mean, it's just a mono block.
So what would I notice between that and let's say those March Audio ones that you have that are really nice?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is the power that's actually on tap, the power supply. The dynamic range is probably higher if I were to guess.
Got it.
I trust. I would think that the signal to noise on the purifiers are probably better just because the purifiers the modules are so low in signal to noise. Well, that would be a big deal to me. As far as the power, I think that Fosse probably rates them similarly, but I don't know if in terms of actual raw power, if they actually are able to deliver that. I tested them, but I don't remember what it was. And this is something I'm working on with a manufacturer for some hardware, is trying to actually come up with a good way to test these small amplifiers with multitone. So I've already done it before, but I wasn't really confident in that method. So I had like an hour-long conversation with this guy, and he took my video link and my write-up for that WIM amp where I did that at, and he was going to talk to their engineers about it and see if they can come up with something that would make sense. And then if they do, then maybe we can work something out where I can use their products to test some of these things out. You know, it would make more sense. It's not Audio Precision, but it's another brand. But
That's awesome.
yeah, it seems like so that could be helpful in determining these kind of questions. Like they're both rated 100 watts. Is it really 100 watts? What happens when you really saturate the power supply with a solid load and driving it at higher outputs? You know, does it weaken the output, or are they really still, providing the same amount of power? I think that'll help answer that question. There's something else you asked in there, but I've already forgotten what it was. So
Yeah. We have a lot of starred comments too. Maybe we should get at these. So Wendell asks, I'm adding acoustic ceiling panels. Do I need to do a calibration? Depends. I would say it depends on what kind of calibration you did in the first place. I would say probably though.
Not
Probably.
sure. Like if you like, how many clouds are you putting in? Are they like moving the ceiling down like a foot? Then yeah, if they're like off the ceiling.
yeah,
But
I would think the answer is yes. I think the simple answer is yes.
yeah,
And if for no other reason than just to feel like you did what you were supposed to have done anyway. Right now you don't
yeah,
question anymore.
yeah.
Like you did it. Okay.
Yeah, well, for Magic Beans, we optimize the higher frequencies for the near field measurement, right? So the question is, would adding those affect the near field measurement? And I don't know. Depends on how far the ceiling is from the speaker. Because if it's really far away, it might not affect it at all. It will affect how you perceive it, though, right?
Yes.
Without changing any EQ at all, that doesn't mean that what you're going to hear when you're sitting down is not going to be different. So yeah, I would say if you're gonna take the time to do it, just might as well run it, right?
Yeah.
That's my recommendation. Paul Travisano says, I think it would be cool for Joe to talk about how DSP and room correction works. I feel like I do that. Don't I do that?
Maybe on like a lower level, maybe a 5th grade level.
I don't even know how.
Or like a beginner or intro, or I don't know.
Do you have a video on that? Like,
I have an old video of how to use REW, but sometimes I'm like, there's some stuff I would say differently now.
well, so I think maybe the simple way to go about it would be to say that room correction often isn't just room correction.
Mm.
It's correcting for everything. Like room correction would be correcting for response below like 3, 4, 500, 600 hertz, somewhere in that
Mhm.
region, right? But a lot of these are correcting the overall response of the speaker and the room. So there's a delineation between speaker correction and room correction.
Mm.
And I don't think like Odyssey doesn't make that delineate. Now, Dirac does, right? With their 500 hertz and below package, that's more room. It's not
Yeah.
called room correction, I don't think, but it's more akin to proper room correction than it is speaker correction. And a lot of times, if you have a good speaker, you don't want it to touch too much. You know, you're just trying to correct for the bass issues in the room,
Mhm.
more ideally. If you have a bad speaker, if it has good directivity, like what Joe uses with Magic Beans, then theoretically, again, because I haven't used it, then
Mhm.
you're fixing the speaker's linearity issues, but in a way that makes sense because it has good directivity, which means the reflections match the on-axis sound to some good degree, no
Mhm.
pun intended. But if it's a crappy speaker with bad directivity, then you can't separate the reflections from the direct sound, and you're fighting them when you're trying to correct for one or the other. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know how much
so
sense that makes, but
with
go ahead.
Magic Beans, we correct the in situ near field response of the speaker, and we
Yeah.
target a neutral, like flattish response, right? With respect to what's EQable, so we do take a look at directivity to make sure that we're not trying to boost something that's like foolish to try to fix. But I think there's a reason why we do that, not just basing it on anechoic only measurements, because sometimes there's variation from speaker to speaker. Sometimes, like what we were talking about, where maybe the amplifier itself is load dependent, so that's affecting the frequency response, and that wouldn't show up in some anechoic measurements. It could be that they have some stuff that's nearby that's causing some reflections that maybe their TV's acting as a waveguide, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And that's affecting things. Maybe their wall is too close, and so that's affecting the sound. Maybe they have an acoustic transparent screen in front of the speaker, and that needs to be accounted for as well. And that's not in the anechoic data. That's why we're doing near field measurements, and we determine where the transition region is, and then we EQ below that differently. We're not trying to make that flat. We're trying to see what is the trend for what is the room wanting to do to the bass response based on like what are all the other speakers doing at your listening position, and we're just smoothing making that smoother. So we're not targeting an ideal, some bass rise that somebody else figured out. We're looking at what is the natural bass rise in your room, and let's
Yeah.
follow that trend, but make it smooth, right? To a certain
Mhm.
degree. We're not trying to boost dips that are impossible to boost anyway. But to a reasonable amount, and we're trying to make that smooth. Now, one thing I just recently learned that's interesting is we export something called like a speaker response where it does show the in-room directivity. We call it in-room directivity. And what I think is fascinating is if you compare that to a clipple measurement where you can take a look at an ideal situation, like what's the ideal curve, what's the shape of this thing, and you compare it to the real world measurement. What I find interesting is that you can start to say, hey, you know what, I think this is your room, and these are ways that you can treat it. You're getting a bass suck out here, maybe you want to address that, right? Because even though your ears might get used to it, it's still better to kind of make it more ideal if you can.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just a way of using it where you can compare your in-room measurements to the anechoic ones and start to figure out how you can start to adjust your room now. It informs you how to adjust your room. So that's some next level stuff. But yeah, there you go. Dave, what do you say? Devon Franklin. I might have missed the update, but any news on how Magic Beans performed on the Tone Winner? It works well. It works well. It's just that it's too tedious to do, right? It's very tedious because imagine your LCR has 11 bands of parametric EQ. So each band of PEQ has 3 settings, right? You have to do each setting on a remote. Think about like typing in passwords on a remote. Sucks, right?
Yeah, that's
You might spend an hour and a half just putting in PEQs with that remote. So I'm working with Tone Winner. Hopefully they can provide an update that will allow you to just import via USB. But that's what's going on. It works. It works. Just know that if you want to go that route, super tedious to do with the remote, but that doesn't have to do with Magic Beans. Has more to do with just the way the Tone Winner currently works. But if you go to their site, I did send them a little discount. If you go to their site, they should have a link that kicks you over, and then see if there's a discount code, or maybe reach out to Amir at Summit Hi-Fi, and he'll hook you up with a code. So you'll get a discount on Magic Beans. Let's see here. Mosin says there are many names circulating on social media for professional calibration services. Is it worth the investment? How exactly can it make a difference? And that's the issue, is like, what's professional, right?
Oh yeah.
What is professional? Because I have some people who have that I would consider, a lot of people would consider professional, and I've had people with Trinovs using Magic Beans, and they said, hey, I had this guy that I will not name, right, work on my system, and Magic Beans does a better job than this guy did. And this guy's a professional, right? Like professional enough to work on, let me see if, I wouldn't be giving it away. It's not, I'll tell you, it's not Anthony Grimani. So
Okay.
if you guys are trying to guess, it's not him, but somebody who's professional enough that they worked on the RP22 guidelines, right? So you know what that is, Aaron?
No, I was just about to Google it.
It is like they have the CTA, and they came out with some guidelines on how to set up your speakers for home theater, where to place them, all these different factors.
Oh, it's a CEDIA thing.
CEDIA thing.
Okay.
Is
Yeah, we've talked about this. I've seen this. I'm looking at it now.
So would you consider somebody who worked on that professional? I would.
I would hope so. But I will say that I know. Yeah, never mind. I'm not saying it. Okay.
So
I would think so.
I'm not trying to.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
Down to bring myself up, right?
Right.
I'm only speaking the truth and saying, to answer your question specifically, that is somebody I would consider a professional. They're writing the guidelines, right? But the customer told me that they're getting better, better results using
product over what they got with somebody else. Right.
That person came over, did it manually, and they're getting better results. Now, the thing is, to me, a lot of this stuff is still evolving. So that's not even to downplay this person. Maybe once this person finds out, hey, Magic Beans, oh yeah, maybe they'll evolve Magic Beans and make it better.
Yeah.
But we're constantly learning. So I feel like Magic Beans is on the forefront of a lot of this stuff. And yeah, I would love to see more professionals using it. I would love to see what Anthony Grimani has to say about it. He has a copy. We've talked for a couple hours about it. So let's see what happens. But yeah, I with professional stuff, it's tough.
Yeah, I think I would treat it no differently than I would if I were getting my car stereo installed by somebody and I was paying a good bit of money, or if I was having any kind of work done. You ask for the portfolio of work, and you ask for people who they worked on and see if you can get their contacts, and then contact those people and ask them. And if you have a good installer or custom installer, somebody who's going to be doing the work for you, they shouldn't have an issue giving you that information as long as, you know, the other people are okay with having their information given out. But yeah, you just need a portfolio of work and some testimonials. That's the word I was looking for.
Testimonial, okay.
Yeah, but not on their website. Like, if you can, try to find the people who, and dude, Facebook is a great way to do it. Join one of these Facebook groups. You're probably already on one. That's probably how you've heard about these names. Privately
There's-
message some of the people who indicate that they've had work done and ask them about their experience from top to bottom, and then get a couple different names together. I'm with Joe when it comes to this industry. I don't know what makes the telltale sign for a professional. For me, just having been doing this for a while in this YouTube space and meeting some of the people that I've met, I've got enough contacts. Like, for example, if there was something I was really curious about and I knew that Joe might know somebody, I would ask Joe. I think on this channel, I don't know if it's good for us to necessarily recommend anybody or endorse anybody, because I don't know if there's anybody specifically that we could or should do that for. I've sent some people a couple different ways and they've had pleasant experiences, but then other times, you know, they've not gone with somebody I recommended and they've gone with somebody else, and that worked out as well too.
Well, I can recommend Anthony Gramani just because I know his method. He's not using magic beans, but I know he's doing like the things that he's doing specifically. I would say, yep, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like the fact that he has like some in-ear monitors that he knows the frequency response of, and he's listening to pink noise, and he's listening to the speaker and this and seeing, do they sound tonally similar? Like that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But who else does that? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, his methods are sound, right? There you go. I guess it's just tricky because there's no metric to say whether something's good. Have you used Wim's auto EQ?
Yeah, it was kind of funky.
It was pretty bad. Like on mine, I'm like, ooh, I love you guys, but dude, this is not good, right?
Yeah.
But go to the forum and look at people's response to that auto EQ. Oh man, it really made it sound better. It's almost all positive, right?
Yeah.
Because it made a change. It made some sort of change, and they assume that change is better. But that's a problem though, because it actually made it worse. I will tell you right now, it probably made it worse. So what's to say that this professional is going to come over, make some changes that are going to make it worse, and you're going to say, oh yeah, that's totally worth it.
That's
based on what metric?
That's no different than kind of like I talked about earlier when I was saying there's that one speaker that I've been listening to that I'm reviewing soon that I really like, the kit one that's like €950 a pair. You know, if you let somebody listen to those, then you let somebody listen to a speaker that's colored, they're going to choose the one that's more neutral just by default. I mean, that's a science. We know that to be the case. There's no question about that. So what happens is people who are inexperienced or don't have the ability to A/B quickly between a neutral speaker and a very colored speaker, they may like a certain couple things about the colored one, but not realize that there's something much better on the other side. There's a better alternative because all they know is the thing that's in front of them. So like you're saying, if they pay somebody to come out and do all this work, then the assumption is that it's going to be right. And then there's a lot of times where I've run into this myself. I've had plenty of people do this where they'll say that, you know, I listened to this speaker and I thought it was great, but then I went and listened to the other one and I realized how wrong I was, right? Because you just don't know any better until you have the opportunity to hear something better.
Yeah, it's just it's hard because there's no metric to say whether they did a good or bad job, right? With video calibration, there are certain standards, and they got to hit these. There's a delta E, and it tells you how far off they are. With speakers, it's more like if there was a way to send every calibrator KEF Blade 2 Meta, and if the room is somewhat decent, right, their EQ to that speaker above the transition region should pretty much be nothing. Shouldn't do anything.
Yeah, right.
It's already excellent, right?
Yeah.
If you run Magic Beans, which is fully automatic, I'm confident that the correction above that would just be like, don't do anything. Just leave it as is. So that's the metric, right? And I think that what you'd find if you ran Magic Beans on a decent speaker is it's going to make the on-axis near field response more neutral, right? It'll do that. I mean, that's doable, right? And it'll do it in a smart way so it doesn't make it sound horrible, right? And it'll make the bass smoother. I mean, it's not crazy. The stuff that we're doing is not nuts. What's hard is that I have to support all these AVR, and pre-pros that I'm not working with directly, and we output something that will work with all of them. That's the hard part. And we make it easy for someone who has no idea what they're doing. It just spits out an answer and they're like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, what else? There's two more and then let's get going here. We have John Hour. How are you doing, John? He says, does anyone know for Dirac license, is it per product? If you have two of the same AVR, do I need to get two license or just one? It is per serial number.
Oh.
So I have lots of devices here that run Dirac. I have mini DSPs that run Dirac. I have NADT 778. This computer runs Dirac. And when you fire up the software, it'll detect all of them, right? So it detects, I think it detects the IP address and then the, I don't know, serial number, something like that. So yeah, you can't just have one license. If you have one where maybe you don't use a product, you may be able to give them a call and say, hey, I don't use this anymore. I want to use it on another one, but you can't use one license for two products.
Okay.
Beefy. Nearfield subs. I'm contemplating using 5 monolith slim subs, one under each seat of my sectional sofa. Okay.
I guess that's the brand name.
I don't know.
Oh, is that like the love sack thing? Is that what that is?
Maybe. Versus my regular M and K subs, which fail to pressurize the massive volume of my open loft condo. Okay, so I do have a Nearfield sub. One thing to consider that I didn't consider when I set it up is that you think like, oh, if I put the sub close, then I'm just going to hear all the direct sound, right? I'm not going to have any interference because it's so close.
Oh yeah.
But actually, that sofa is going to start absorbing certain frequencies too. So even if you have a flat sub and you put it right up next to it, you may want to measure that still. Because in my case, I'm getting like a null because it's canceling something out immediately.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird. I didn't expect that. Like you may want to figure out how far that thing needs to be, I guess. Right. So what would you say?
I would agree with that.
Nearfield.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with what you're saying about not assuming that it's going to be perfect because the furniture will also have an effect on it. It's like in car audio when you put a subwoofer behind the trunk. I'll do this later. When you put a subwoofer behind the trunk wall, that rear seat will kind of act like a bandpass filter in some regards.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it will do certain weird things to the response, and then if you lay the seat down, you'll see and hear a very noticeable difference between the sound. So yeah, but I get where he's coming from, that if you put the subwoofers closer to you, you don't have, especially with 5 of them.
Those monoprice slim subs are not the
Do they not go that low?
So monoprice is tricky, right? Because there's monoprice and there's monolith.
Yeah.
All the monolith subs, pretty beast. A lot of the monoprice subs, I don't know.
Yeah.
You got to be careful with some of those because the price is low and the performance is also not
low,
that high.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's true.
It's low. It's low. Sometimes the performance is low because it's a tiny little slim sub, man. I mean, it's like this, it's like this tall.
They're
meant to go underneath.
I mean, with shallow subwoofers, you have to spend money to get into good engineering. I mean, that's the truth of the matter too. There's a lot of money to be made in that market, especially from the automotive standpoint, but more so lately in the past few years for the home audio market too, because there's a lot of people who have smaller rooms, or they don't want, subwoofers to look like big old pieces of furniture, or they have apartments, things of that nature. So they're becoming more and more popular. So there's more money spent on engineering in that regard. But there's also still a whole lot of what I would call classic type slim subwoofers that have been out for 5-10 years, that are using older technology with the motor and the inductance shorting coils and things of that nature. So they just don't perform as well. And that's one thing you have to be careful of too when you get into shallow subwoofers is, trying to make sure that you're buying from a reputable brand that has up-to-date engineering. Not to say that monoprice doesn't, but when you're talking about low cost, especially shallow subwoofers, you're probably going to get very low performance overall. Most of the time, you're going to be hitting 40 hertz if you're lucky. There's no way you're really going to get 30 unless there's a lot of room gain, and that's relative to the placement. 50 hertz is usually where they start rolling off at, and that's generalized statement for the majority of all these slim subwoofers, and that's for home and car audio. So yeah.
Yeah, so I'm speaking specifically of I'm not sure which slimline sub you're talking about, but let me just show you something here. Window, boom, share. So this is a mono price one that I'm seeing, SSW 8.
An 8. Yeah.
Right. You see how it looks, right? Boom.
Is that sealed
Port.
too?
I think it has a port on the side actually that they might not be showing. But look at this.
About port chuff.
Look at this. That's one that I reviewed. Very similar in style.
Yeah.
You know, they are what they are.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's pretty much it. I'm glad that we were able to hop on. We weren't actually gonna do one today, but
yeah,
Aaron decided to be on, so we said, hey, let's do it.
Worked out. Yeah.
Just because Chana was driving, but it turned out good, I think.
Yeah, I had a good one, man.
Good to see all you guys in the chat. Hopefully we answered some of your questions there. And if you want to be part of the Daily HiFi Crew, where we talk about all this stuff and more in the after show.
More.
And more, crew.dailyhifi.com is where you sign up. What else? Merch at shop.dailyhifi.com. And you can listen to the audio only version of the podcast at anchor.fm/dailyhifi. Also, make sure to follow Aaron's channel and subscribe to his Patreon, all that stuff. Aaron's Audio Corner and my channel, Joe and Tell. And that's it. I think that's it for today. We'll see you guys next week. See you, Aaron. Good seeing you, man. Watch your butt cheek. Ice that thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'll give myself a tetanus shot.
There you go. All right.
Man.
Later.
Later.